Hi, this is Russell Pearson, and I wanted to quickly jump in here and invite you to subscribe. So, subscribe to the Marketing Report for the absolute latest in marketing, sales, and growth strategies for your business delivered directly to you. Now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Marketing Report. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode number 15. The Marketing Report is a podcast for passionate yet frustrated business owners who are looking for a competitive edge. And today I want to talk about that frustration. I want to talk about frustration that I feel, that the majority of you out there are feeling right now, about that impatience to get where you want to be. We as entrepreneurs, as business owners, have big dreams. We have places that we want to go and we have things that we want to create. And usually they are big dreams, and that's fantastic. I want you to dream big. Nobody gets out of bed in the morning for a tiny dream, okay? So we need to keep that in mind as we're actually creating and doing each thing each day. But the frustration comes from what the old adage of, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you eat it one bite at a time. Everyone's trying to eat the elephant in one big gulp. You can't do it. It's impossible. And that's where part of that frustration comes from, because people perceive that it should be possible to jump to get there because they hear about all these overnight successes. There are very rarely overnight successes. There are people who struggled for years and years and years, and then suddenly all the things that they did finally click together, and those people become a success very quickly. But it's because of all the pre-work. They earned the right for that success. Now, I'm not saying you haven't earned the right yet. I'm suggesting that you've tried a hell of a lot of things and you've worked incredibly hard over time, and you've got a fair reason to be frustrated. But a lot of that frustration comes from you focusing on the big picture rather than the tiny little yet powerful steps that you can be doing each day to build the thing you're trying to create, to get you from where you are to where you want to be. There are a number of reasons why people get frustrated, and one of the big ones is that people don't do the planning. And planning is boring for me, as well as for a lot of you. Some people love planning. Some people don't like going into a situation without a plan, and that's fantastic, because a plan allows us to get real about what is possible and what is impossible. Now, I've heard the expression, nothing's impossible. Well, there are only so many hours in the day. And yes, there are different ways to do things, but if you're planning to get 25 hours worth of activities done in 24 hours, it's not going to happen. It is just literally impossible for you to plug those things into something else. There may be a faster way for you to do things and therefore not have 25 hours of activities into 24 hours, but reduce your 25 hours, get it into 20 hours, get it into 10 hours, whatever it might be for it to be realistic. But if you haven't done the planning, you haven't actually seen how much time each of those things is going to take. And then that leads us into the other problem, that as entrepreneurs, we often get frustrated because it seems like it should only take something should only take 4 hours. And usually that's because we haven't done it before, because we feel like we're creating our own new path. Entrepreneurs have this explorer's mentality, which I love, but it's also the thing that leads to frustration, because they're always trying to cut a new path. And a lot of the time, if they just look to the left or look to the right, that path is right next to them, and it's already been created by somebody else. So there's a number of things I would like you to look at that should help you reduce some of that frustration while still holding on to your massive big dreams. So I want you to dream big. I want you to aim for the sky. I want you to aim for above the sky, shatter through that glass ceiling that exists around the hemisphere, and see if you can actually blast through into outer space with what you're dreaming. I'm happy for you to go big. But if you're gonna go big, you need to get very small. So dream big, but act small in your daily operations. And by act small, I'm not saying just do little things that seem like they're easy to do or completely possible. Stretch yourself. Try to play a bigger game, but don't try and do everything at once, because you'll end up failing at all the different activities you're trying to do. If you focus on one thing at a time, you're going to get to where you're going to get. So What's the first step? Well, we dream big. We have a massive dream. We then take that dream and say, where are we now? We're over here. We've got the dream up there. What are the steps? What are the milestones that we need to move through in order to get where we want to go? Now, plans aren't perfect. There's a great Mike Tyson, I think it's Mike Tyson quote, that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And as many of us as business owners know, we get punched in the face daily. But it's the resilience that's going to keep us going. It's the dream that's something that's aligned to who we are as an individual that are going to give us the energy to move us consistently forward towards that dream. So the idea of putting a plan in place is to say, what are the things that need to be accomplished for us to get there? If we put too detailed a plan in place, something that's not going to be flexible, it's probably going to break. So plan for milestones, maybe not timelines, okay? So, because everything does tend to take longer if you haven't had that experience of how long something should take in the past. Which leads me on to the next piece, which is while you're making your plan, speak to people or bring people into your planning process who've done it before. And not people who talk about just the theory, but people who've actually done it, because the theory's nice, but it doesn't talk to the activity. It doesn't talk to the specifics about where are the little hurdles that you're going to hit? What are the obstacles you're going to have to overcome in the day-to-day activities to get something done? In the old days, I used to actually put together websites, and we would create these custom websites. We weren't using cookie cutter templating. We would actually design something completely from scratch. And over time, we got to understand how long something would take. But we had a perception of how long it would take at the very start. And until we had the experience, it would always take us twice as long or 3 times as long. And then every now and then, we would get an expert in to help us with a small section of the project. And they would show us some tricks and tips on how to speed up the process and point out the hurdles that we're going to have to overcome so we can bring them earlier into our planning process, so that if we couldn't overcome them, we would get onto them a lot quicker and we would be able to focus on them, so they wouldn't be we wouldn't get to 80% of the project being done and then realize that we've actually got twice as much time to spend in the future to finish it off because there were hurdles we hadn't perceived yet. So the same thing happens within our own businesses. So get people in from time to time who can help you, not just when you've got the obstacle, but when you're actually doing the planning process. Who's going to help you do the plan process, who understands how much time it takes to get from A to B, then to C and D, and onwards, all through each of those milestones as you're continuing to build your massive, big dream. So plan. Don't just plan around specific activities, but plan around the time it takes. Plan around the people you're going to need with you on the journey, because this is another frustration that we all have as business owners and entrepreneurs, is that we are the best people to do this because we have the drive and we have the energy to get it done. So a lot of the time, we'll just go and do what needs to be done rather than looking for the best person external of us to help us do that. And in turn, what we end up finding is we hit those same obstacles because we haven't done this before. Yes, we'll eventually get there because we have the resilience, because we have the energy, but we'll hit obstacles that we do not know how to overcome quickly. And so again, it takes us more time than we perceive. We might be able to actually work 24 hours on it, and so therefore it takes us quicker in a day than it might take in a week, but that's 24 hours that we don't get back. We've all got the same amount of time, each of us, so we really should be spending our energy and our time on the things that are going to get us our best results. So engaging those people around us to help us move us forward is going to be one of the great skills I think that every person here as a business owner or entrepreneur needs to develop over time. And I'm guilty of this myself. I'm always looking at a thing and going, all right, it's going to take me longer to find someone to do this thing than it is for me to either learn to do it myself or for me to do it myself because I have some level of expertise around whatever this project step is. But the reality is what I should be focusing on, and I think this is advice for everybody, not just for myself, is that we all should be, as entrepreneurs and business owners, focusing on our ability to attract and then engage the right people to do the right job. Who are the who's that are actually going to help us get quickly through the obstacles as we're building this hugely massive dream business for ourselves? Who are we going to get on board our teams? Often we find people that are around us and go, yes, they'll do. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about engaging people that will do and just saying, all right, I'll learn how to manage them. I'm talking about being a great attractor of the right people and being able to identify who is the right person for each of the steps in your building process, okay? So you've got all these steps. Now on the day-to-day, this is something that we're doing within the Forge, which is the weekly online program, which actually gets our members accountable for what are the tiny yet powerful steps they're going to implement each week that they're going to definitely get done, which are all going to move them towards completing their much larger goals. So if I was to look at growing my business from here, and it's got a number of steps that we need to move through, each of those steps is an individual focus goal. How do we get through to this milestone? What are the steps that then get us through to that milestone? Each of those steps are the tiny actions we need to focus on each week. One of the members in the Forge over the last couple of weeks, I've had to actually bring down. They've said a goal that they've got, which is absolutely fantastic. It's almost a SMART goal in itself, which is specific, measurable, accountable, results driven, and timely. And so she's very clear about where she wants to go, which is fantastic. But her step during the week is to implement a process where she has 15 sales conversations every single week. And while it's possible to do that like a lot of weeks, it may not be possible to do that every single week. So I've actually spoken to her about how she can reduce the size of the goal and actually make it much more manageable and bring it around, not around specifics of how many she's doing, but how many she's converting. Okay, so to convert one, it might take you 20, 30 different calls in the early days, and you'll work a little bit harder, but you won't be able to maintain that sort of intensity for the long haul, but you'll get better through that practice. So convert one, all right, then we were doing 20 or 30 conversations, then suddenly we get better at it because we start learning our sales process better, and we can start to convert one within maybe 10 calls, and then we reduce it down to 5, and that's once we start reducing the conversion rate on something like those calls, then we can start bringing the calls up, because we know that we can maintain probably 10 calls, but above that, we're starting to get into a high intensity space. So there are times within your planning process, you'll have to get high intensity, and you'll have to actually work a little bit harder, work a bit longer in the day to get things done. But do understand the practical realities of making that a consistent practice within your business. I think practices as far as creating something you're going to do every single day or every single week are brilliant, but you need to consider what happens when you're sick. What happens when a loved one passes? What happens when something goes pear-shaped, as it does just about every single day in our business lives? We have these great successes, and we also have these punches in the face. What happens when something goes wrong? How is the thing I've committed to something that I can get done? Or ideally, is the something that I've committed to something I can get someone else to do, or at least help me with, so it gets accomplished? Because at the end of the day, the tiny steps are about accomplishing steps, getting us closer to completing our goal, which is a milestone on the way to creating this business of our dreams. So dream big. I want you to stay passionate. I want you to aim for the skies, and I want you to aim for the stars. Get very, very passionate about it. Dream big though, and act small. Get these tiny incremental actions done on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, which create results that are going to create momentum. And momentum moves you. And I want you to be moved by your business. I want you to feel that energy as you start thinking about your business. I want it to energize you and actually make you more passionate, rather than the opposite, which is to dread getting up and having to go to work the next day. So forget the dread. Energize yourself, get very, very clear about what are the tiny actions that are going to give you momentum as you move your way up to that business of your dreams. Stay passionate. I'm going to be passionate enough for all of you, and I will catch you in the next episode. Make sure to visit russellpearson.com for more podcast episodes, videos, and more. russellpearson.com.